My first donut. Perhaps something comes to mind when you think about your first donut. Maybe it's a freshly baked Krispy Kreme donut, fresh out of the oven. Maybe it's a bakery where you had your first donut as a child, where your grandmother or your mother took you there. No doubt you had a memory about your first donut. Fellow Toastmasters and guests, my story does not involve a delectable treat. My story begins on October 14th, 1996. I was 16 years old. It was time to get my license. I found myself with my instructor next to me about to take my driver's test. He instructed me towards two cones. Let's say the back cone was here, the forward cone was here. I drive up to the cones, I situated myself. It was now time to parallel park. I pulled my bumper up to the front cone, checked my mirrors, rear view mirror, looked behind, left, put it in reverse, slowly turned the wheel to my 45-degree angle so I got to the curb properly. Once my front bumper hit the front cone, I turned again to the other 45-degree angle, stopped, put it in park. It was a perfect parallel park. I did not have to move forward or back. I was close enough to the curb. I was so happy. I looked at my instructor, who looked at me and said, you know, you're supposed to keep two hands on the wheel at all time and turn one hand over the other. My jaw dropped, my eyebrows went up. I was so surprised. I was very surprised. His response was, well, you did a great job, but you're supposed to do that. However, that was one of the best parallel park jobs I had seen in a while. So we proceeded through the rest of my test. He wrote down his information on his paperwork. At the end of the test, he got out, shook my hand, and said, congratulations, you passed your test, even though you did so erroneously with your steering. Next step, I needed a car. I had to do my first donut, I needed a car. I had worked that previous summer with my father as a painting contractor, painting, drywall, wallpaper hanging, as well as a busboy at night. I was working 16, 17 hours to make money because I knew that I had to buy my own car. It wasn't about to be given to me. I had to pay my own insurance. 1 month after October 14th, my birthday, I got that car. It was a 1971 rusty cream Pontiac Firebird. 350 cubic inches of V8 power. I was going to take advantage of every horsepower it had. One thing that I also was looking forward to was being able to drive to and from school. To and from school, driving meant I no longer had to hitch a ride from my sister's boyfriend, and I no longer had to wait in the freezing rain and the snow that was Pittsburgh winters. That's a big thing. Fast forward into January, it's snowing. It's a rainy, cold morning. 2 to 3 inches of snow on the ground already. I approach my high school. I drive into the parking lot, enter this way. This is the parking lot. I enter here. There are cars parked vertically here, and my classmates are walking towards my school over here. It's about a third of the lot's full. Once I get about halfway through a third of the lot, I eyeball the 2/3 of the lot that is empty. That is untracked. There's no tracks. 2 to 3 inches. I thought to myself, this is it. This is my first donut. Has anyone done a donut before in the snow? Yes, you know what I'm talking about. Anyone that has not done a donut before in the snow, it means you've basically spun around uncontrollably with your car in reckless abandon to some extent. Backstory, my father, every year in winter, he would take us out in his rear-wheel drive car and we would do donuts in random parking lots every year. So I was destined to do a donut in my car. I passed the last third of that parking lot with those cars. I slowly increased the gas, turned slightly right. Then slowly increased again, turned slightly left. Then I hooked it all the way, slammed the gas, and I was in an all-out spin until I came to a stop, both hands on the wheel. I was so happy. The grin on my face, I couldn't see it, but I was so happy. Then I heard the knock. I looked to my side, I saw someone pointing at me. Get out of the car now and park. I parked, I got out of the car, I was escorted to the principal's office. 15 minutes later, my father was sitting next to me. I was so scared. I was ready to receive my sentence, however, which was, you could have injured yourself. You could have injured your classmates. You are now suspended for the rest of the day. I was a good kid, so I really didn't have a track record. So I was suspended for the rest of the day. My father and I received the suspension, stepped up, walked out of the room, walked down the 2-mile hallway, if it was 50 feet, in complete silence. We got to the door that led us outside. We stepped outside. My dad grabbed my shoulder. I froze, about to a brick. And then he said to me, you know, you could have really injured yourself. You could have really injured your classmates. And then he smiled. And he said, but next time you do that, don't do it around people and don't get caught. He gave me a big hug. Thanks, Dad. He took me to work. I went back to painting, wallpaper, drywall repair. And that's my story about my first dog.